It is the morning of April 8th, 2005, and the workers arriving at the Longbridge plant in Birmingham find the gates locked. No warning, no meeting, no letter. 6,000 people stand on the pavement outside a factory that has been building cars on this site for 100 years, and the administrator's notice is already on the door. At its height, Longbridge produced over 900,000 cars per year. The plant was the industrial heart of the West Midlands and, by extension, of working Britain itself. The company that owned MG Rover, the last British-owned mass car manufacturer, has accumulated $1.4 billion in debts. Its pension fund carries a $67 million deficit. And the four men who bought the company for 10 have paid themselves $42 million in the 5 years since. This is the story of how Britain's last mass car maker was not killed by foreign competition or changing tastes, but by the men entrusted to save it. The Longbridge legacy. Herbert Austin built his first car on a converted printing works site in Longbridge in 1905. The factory grew with the century through 2 world wars, through the great expansion of British manufacturing, through the decades when a car built in Birmingham could be sold anywhere in the world without apology. By the 1950s, Longbridge was one of the largest car plants on Earth. The Austin Motor Company merged into the British Motor Corporation in 1952, absorbing Morris, MG, and Riley into a single industrial entity whose scale suggested permanence. In 1959, Alec Isagonis designed the Mini at Longbridge, a car so consequential it redefined what a small vehicle could be, selling over 5 million units in its first generation alone. British Leyland formed in 1968, consolidating almost every remaining British car maker into one conglomerate. The group employed over 250,000 workers at its peak. The ambition was rational: pool resources, achieve scale, compete with Ford and General Motors on equal terms. The result was the opposite of what the ambition promised. Scale without coherence is not strength, it is the weight. The British Leyland disaster through the 1970s, British Leyland became the most vivid example of British industrial failure available. Strikes closed the Longbridge line repeatedly. 523 separate stoppages recorded between 1970 and 1974. Quality fell. Deliveries became unreliable. Dealers in export markets stopped trusting the supply chain and started looking elsewhere. In 1975, the government nationalized British Leyland to prevent collapse, injecting $2 billion in public funds into a company that had lost the confidence of its own customers. Michael Edwardes was appointed chairman in 1977 with a mandate to impose order. He confronted the unions directly, cut the workforce by 50,000, and closed plants that could not be made productive. The cars that followed the Metro, the Maestro, the Montego achieved modest sales without restoring the company's reputation. Japanese manufacturers were arriving in force. Toyota, Honda, and Nissan offered reliability that British Leyland's customers had stopped expecting from domestic products. In 1986, the group was rebranded as the Rover Group, a new name on the same building. The structural problems did not change their name along with it. The Honda Alliance. In 1979, Rover signed a collaboration agreement with Honda that would define the next 15 years of the company's existence. Honda provided engineering platforms, powertrains, and manufacturing discipline. Rover provided access to European markets and a network of dealers Honda would have taken years to build independently. It was a transaction dressed as a partnership. The arrangement produced real cars. The Rover 200, 400, 600, and 800 series were all built on Honda-derived platforms, with Honda engines refined for the British market. Quality improved measurably. The interior fit and finish that had embarrassed British Leyland for a decade began to approach the standard customers expected Honda took a 20% equity stake in Rover Group by 1990. In 1992, Rover posted its first profit in years. The recovery was celebrated in the press as evidence that British manufacturing could compete again. What the celebration obscured was the dependency. Rover was not developing its own engineering capability in parallel. Every competitive product it sold was built on technology it did not own. The profit was real. The foundation was borrowed. The BMW acquisition. In January 1994, BMW announced the acquisition of Rover Group from British Aerospace for $800 million. The announcement landed in Britain like a complicated verdict. British Aerospace had purchased Rover in 1988 for $150 million and sold it 6 years later at a $650 million profit, having invested minimally and extracted considerably. The sale to BMW was legal, rational, and widely regarded as a betrayal. Honda, given no warning, terminated the alliance and reclaimed its technology and its equity stake. The platforms, the engines, the engineering relationships were gone, and the time it took BMW to sign the paperwork. BMW's calculation was clear. The Rover brand portfolio, Land Rover, Mini, MG, was worth more than the cars currently being sold under those names. BMW invested $2 billion over 6 years. New models, long bridge upgrades, platform development. The investment produced little commercial return. Rover's market share continued to decline through the late 1990s. Internal BMW documents, later leaked to the German press, referred to Rover as the English patient. The diagnosis was accurate. The question was whether anyone would admit it before the money ran out. The Phoenix 4. In March 2000, BMW accepted that the Rover cars business could not be saved under its ownership. Land Rover was sold to Ford for $1.8 billion. The Mini brand was retained. What remained of the MG and Rover names, the Longbridge plant, aging platforms, and a workforce of 6,000 was offered for sale. 4 West Midlands businessmen stepped forward. John Towers, Peter Beale, Nick Stevenson, and John Edwards formed a consortium called Phoenix Venture Holdings. Eager to exit cleanly, sold the Rump Rover business to Phoenix for $10. Alongside the nominal purchase price came a $500 million dowry cash and loan facilities to fund the transition. The deal was celebrated nationally. British jobs saved. British ownership was restored. John Towers was welcomed in Birmingham with the warmth reserved for men who appear, at the right moment, to be doing something selfless. 4 businessmen with limited automotive experience had just taken control of Britain's last mass car maker. They had done it with money they did not earn, and a plan that existed, at that point, largely in the press release. The gates were open. The clock was running. The collapse of the plan. Phoenix's stated strategy was to find a major manufacturing partner, preferably Asian, who would co-develop new platforms and share the capital cost of modernizing the product range. The logic was sound. The execution produced nothing. Negotiations were held with Ford, General Motors, Tata, and several Chinese manufacturers through 2001 and 2002. Each approach stalled at the same obstacle. MG Rover had no competitive products, no modern engineering platforms, and a declining sales trajectory that made partnership unattractive. A company with nothing current to offer needed a partner willing to invest in a future that grew less certain each year. Sales figures recorded the deterioration with precision. In 2001, MG Rover sold 180,000 vehicles. By 2004, that figure had fallen to approximately 100,000. Without new models, the customer base aged and contracted with mathematical certainty. Buyers who had grown up with Rover moved to Ford, Volkswagen, and Toyota and did not come back. The $500 million BMW dowry was burning faster than projected. The one serious prospect remaining was a partnership with Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation, announced in 2003. Everything now depended on that negotiation, what the Phoenix 4 were doing. While MG Rover's commercial position deteriorated through 5 years of failed negotiations and falling sales, the personal finances of the Phoenix 4 moved in the opposite direction. Between 2000 and 2005, the 4 directors paid themselves a combined total of $42 million in salaries, pensions, and benefits. John Towers accumulated a pension pot valued at $13 million. The arrangements were routed through a series of related entities, among them Tektronic and Apex, through which fees and consultancy payments were extracted from the group in ways that were legal but structured to avoid straightforward disclosure. The Employee Pension Fund, whose trustees sat in the same building, accumulated a deficit that reached $67 million by 2005. Workers at Longbridge continued arriving each morning under the assumption that the men at the top were working to secure the company's future. Some of those workers had been on the line for 30 years. 2 realities operated simultaneously inside one building. One was visible declining production, uncertain negotiations, a workforce maintaining loyalty to an institution it believed in. The other was not. The extraction continued quietly, quarter by quarter, while the clock ran down. The Chinese negotiations. Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation came to the negotiating table with a clear objective. SAIC wanted MG Rover's intellectual property, the platform designs, the engine technology, the brand licensing arrangements that would allow a Chinese manufacturer to build European heritage vehicles for domestic and global markets. The cars themselves were secondary. The knowledge was the transaction. Negotiations extended through 2003 and 2004, conducted under conditions of mutual suspicion and genuine complexity. MG Rover needed cash immediately. SAIC needed time to assess what it was actually buying and what liabilities came attached. Epilogue Longbridge today is a mixed development retail units, housing, a much reduced automotive operation producing low volumes under the MG name for a market that has largely moved on. The site that once employed 25,000 people at its peak now employs a fraction of that number in functions that bear no resemblance to mass manufacturing. The MG brand survives under SAIC ownership, producing vehicles sold across Europe and back into Britain with the Octagon badge intact. They are competitive, modern, and entirely Chinese in engineering and manufacture. The name connects them to Longbridge. Nothing else does. Britain retains no mass car manufacturer under British ownership. The Mini is built by BMW in Oxford, Land Rover by Tata in Solihull, Bentley by Volkswagen, Rolls-Royce by BMW. The category MG Rover once occupied volume cars, British-owned, built by British workers, does not exist. The Phoenix 4 demonstrated something that extended beyond the car industry. The template was transferable, acquire a failing institution with other people's money, extract value through the years of negotiation, and ensure your own position is secured before the end arrives. 4 men bought Britain's last mass car maker for 10. They sold the knowledge to China and paid themselves $42 million. An institution can survive almost any external pressure. It cannot survive the decision, made quietly at the top, that survival is someone else's problem. The men who are celebrated for saving something are worth watching most carefully in the years after the celebration ends. A workforce's loyalty is not a resource. It is a trust. The distinction matters most when no one in the building is making it. Britain did not lose its car industry to competition. It handed the keys to men who had already decided where they were going.